I'm Nancy Battye, nancybattye.com, and I'm here today to talk to you about radical forgiveness and limiting beliefs. So first of all, what is radical forgiveness? Radical forgiveness is the departure from the traditional forgiveness practices that some of you might be familiar with. Radical forgiveness is a process, and it's a process that gets us connected to our higher level of thinking, gets us connected to our higher consciousness. Radical forgiveness is extremely different than traditional forgiveness in that realm, because traditional forgiveness generally quite often just deals with letting go of guilt, letting go of shame, and offering a pardon or accepting an apology perhaps from another person. Radical forgiveness deals with ourselves and the other person, situation, or party that we feel has been wrong, has wronged us, has been a perpetrator of a great injustice that we're harboring resentment about. So what does that have to do with limiting beliefs? Well, limiting beliefs are what hold us back in our life, hold us back from achieving the type of success in all the different areas of our life that we ultimately would like to experience. So the way to figure out if you have limiting beliefs is to examine your life. How are you showing up? What's happening in your finances? What's happening in your relationship? What's happening with your family? What's happening with your career? What's happening with the fun part of your life? Relationships, for example. You've been divorced more than once or twice, 3 times. Do you constantly find yourself in relationships that are falling apart, that are not working? Financial issues, are you struggling with money? Does the same pattern seem to be repeating itself? Do you have moments of having a great income, and then all of a sudden, the spike drops and you have limited income? What about business, career? Are you satisfied in your career? Have you had multiple career changes and you still keep bumping up against the same resistance? What about your business? Have you had businesses in the past that have been successful and then it's dropped off or it's collapsed for one reason or another? The way to determine if you have a limiting belief that's holding you back in life is to examine what's showing up for you. If the patterns are repeating and they're not to your satisfaction, if they're not offering you the type of success that you want or desire for yourself, that's a limiting belief. So now, here's how limiting beliefs and radical forgiveness connect to one another. Radical forgiveness, one of the processes is to write 3 letters. And in the first letter, you're going to pick a topic, pick an area of your life that's not working so well. Pick an area of your life where you can see the repeated pattern, the habit. And in that pattern, write your first letter from your ego. Have your disowned self, your ego, the part of you that tells you how rotten you are, the part of you that just spins around in your mind and tells you what a failure you are, have that part of your mind write the first letter. And you want to be as open as you possibly can. And since the letter's coming from your ego, it could possibly scare you what your ego has to say. It could possibly make you nervous about the fact that your ego has such a nasty opinion of what your experience has been. But that's okay. Let it rip. Because what we want to do is we want to let go. We want to surrender. We want to release that negative thinking that we have about our disowned self. And what is that exactly? Our disowned self are the parts of us that we can't fully accept, that we're afraid to embrace. They're the negative aspects of ourselves. They're the negative aspects of other people that we're afraid to admit could potentially come unleashed within us, given the circumstances if they were all optimum for that to occur. So a way to find out what that is for you is think about a trait or quality, an experience with another person that just got under your skin. You found yourself being very judgmental. It really just annoyed you that they were just so off the charts in terms of their behavior. And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be critical, it could be judgmental, it could be anger, it could be selfishness, it could be greed, it could be rudeness, it could be control. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that you could name. The point is that we all, each and every one of us, no matter how wonderful we are, the most of the time, each and every one of us, given the right circumstances, could own that particular trait or quality. And that's the part of ourselves that we don't accept. Once we get to the point of accepting it, then it doesn't bother us anymore. So that's the first part of the letter. The second letter is a separate letter. The second letter is from the perspective of taking responsibility for what's occurred in your life now that the same pattern has repeated itself and come up again. So you could, for example, if you had earned a lot of money and had gotten a raise, and then something went terribly wrong, and you lost your job, if you were writing the letter from the perspective of the second one, to take personal responsibility, you would look at that and say, wow, so here you go again, Nancy. I mean, you got out of your comfort zone. You self-sabotaged your job with that raise that you got because somewhere down deep you believed you didn't deserve it. So that's kind of the perspective of the second letter. The third letter is to write from your higher self, from the perspective that you ultimately chose all of those experiences that you've had to date so that you could experience a contrast in life. So you could experience a contrast and grow more fully into who you are, which means that you intentionally set it up to have that experience to self-sabotage so that you can recognize the parts of yourself that you have disowned, the part of yourself that believes you're not worthy or entitled to make that additional money and to be perhaps in the spotlight and to feel confident enough that you deserve, that you're deserving of that recognition. We all self-sabotage. We all self-sabotage. So the whole point is if you write the first letter from the ego, and the ego is reprimanding what you've done because you've been foolish and done the same thing over again. The second one is from the place of personal responsibility. It's a lot gentler. It's like, if I look at that, now I can understand why I did what I did. The third one is from the perspective of getting connected to your higher level of thinking, to understand that you predestined those options, those choices, that experience in the life that you created to date so that you could experience a contrast and you could decide and recognize the parts of yourself that you disown, that you haven't fully accepted. And once you fully accept it and embrace it and acknowledge that you could potentially live into that characteristic or that trait or that quality, once you accept it, you will no longer resist it and will no longer appear in your life. That's the radical forgiveness. That's the connection to the source. That's connection to your source and your higher level of consciousness. 3 letters. And then what you do after that, I wrote my 3 letters about a particular limiting belief. And then you come down to the beach. Well, I like coming to the beach. And then you see if you can get a flame going. And then, once the flame gets going, then you're going to light it on fire. You're going to say goodbye to it. You're going to release it into the universe. And you're going to love and accept yourself and realize how perfect life really is. Finding the perfection in the imperfection. Radical forgiveness and limiting beliefs. Let them go. It's your life.